The light is building in the US first and in Canada, in particular, really bombarding the West Coast, but is ushered in pockets across the landscape. And each of you being here is a great blessing because it helps us help the planet and help each of you by bringing your light here. So he thanks you greatly for showing up. Hey everyone, we are coming live. New hair, who dis? And I really hacked it off, everybody. I just take it all off. I'm super pumped. I want to talk a little bit with Erik, and I'm going to be channeling Erik, the soul Erik, who also helps me and my spirit guides and my spiritual team. And I love talking with Erik because he's so blunt and direct, just the way I like it. And I want to talk about the future of the USA and what information is most important for us to know in the future. Okay, so what is it that is best for us to know? Just an overall synopsis. The future for the US of A. Let's tune in and see what happens. Then first thing he says for the USA, continued wins. Continued wins. And he's smiling when he says that. So continued wins. Things will be getting easier in time with the mass immigration. It's interesting. Everybody's like, oh, Trump. And yet Obama removed way more immigration than Trump ever has. If you looked at the numbers that Obama has, and have a look at the chart. So as far as mass immigration, they're going to start getting a handle on it. Erik says thinning out the herd. Okay. He says the one issue with bringing in individuals that will do the work for a lot less is it takes away from the industry leaders, say other companies, say painting, okay? We're going to paint houses, paint interior, exterior. When you look at bringing in a whole bunch of mass immigration that's willing to do it for half the price, all of the other companies can't compete with that unless they hire immigrants as well that are willing to do it for that cost. And so it really hammers down on a lot of the companies, the small big companies. Then if you look at hospital stays, doctor visits, boy, I can tell you, we've noticed that in Canada. Good luck getting a doctor. If you come to Canada, you won't be getting a doctor. It might be 10 years. My massage therapist tells me your husband's still on the wait list and it's been 10 years. Okay. So when you have mass immigration, you might not get in to see a doctor. Or if an emergency happens, you have to go to the emergency, you'll be staying there for 24 hours. If it's a child or a very serious situation, you might get in sooner. But people aren't even making it, meaning like they're passing on because they can't make it in to see a doctor. Also, when you look at flooding the industries, flooding the jobs, now the government here, for example, is paying all employers to hire a new person that's immigrated to Canada, for example. Well, where did that leave any jobs for the teenagers? Or, if somebody needs to pick up an extra job or get a job at all, you can't get a job here. Literally, there are people repeatedly posting saying that they've applied to like 200, 500, 1,000 jobs. And they are very well educated and they have work experience, but they cannot find a job. And that's what happens with mass immigration. It affects the local people, let alone your belief systems, what you think is right or wrong. It gets easier in time with the mass immigration in the USA because you have a leader that cares. Whereas other countries, pretty much all other countries other than really Poland and Argentina, don't care. And also, it's going to get easier in the US with chemicals. Now, chemicals as far as the food coloring and the chemicals in your food, in your medications, in additives, in pills and medications. Okay, so when we look at the medications, when we talk about the medication, it's distributed out to other countries other than your country. For example, a lot of the medication will come to the US and then it goes into Canada. So because the US is having these regulations, either they're going to reroute around the US to get it to us with the chemicals and food colorings because our government doesn't care, or it will benefit us because it'll come to you guys and then up to us. There's a medication that is something that I've been interested in, but it's got 3 different food colorings just in the outer lining of the medication. So that impacts someone. It can cause hair loss. It can cause memory loss. It can really affect your body in a way that's not good. Pills, medications, food, that's all going to get cleaned up quite a bit. The chemicals that are being sprayed in the air as well. So I'm seeing like chemtrails starting to slow down and stop. And so that's also a win. So these are, when he says continued wins, it's just more and more wins. And as far as the chemicals on the growth of the food, he's talking about that turning around too. Well, and hey, we've already seen RFK shoot down the appeal coating on organic fruits and vegetables. That's a win. Okay, so the reason why he shot that down is because there were chemicals in that coating that were not good for human consumption. And he openly stated that. And then we have some spraying that's happening from one of Bill Gates' companies as well on fruits and vegetables out on farmland. That's another one we need to stop. Okay, so there are some wins coming. He wants me to go back to the food again. The food has been allowed to be altered in the US for far too long. And he wants us to know that himself and everyone here in the spirit world is going to push really hard to move this in a direction to be of equal nutritional value as over time as Italy. The Italians know we're not having no fake meat here. We're not having any chemicals here. And a lot of Europe won't even allow those chemicals to be sprayed on their foods that are being sprayed in the US. So everyone in spirit is going to work diligently and very hard to move the US in time in the direction of being similar or equal to Italy, for example. Another one is Greece. So anyone that has whole food that's he's saying it like this, whole food that's unsprayed without chemicals affecting the human body in a negative way repeatedly over time, that ends up having, he's even talking about like tasteless type food. So maybe when you go to Italy, you're like, wow, this food tastes amazing. But when you go back to the US, it's bland and tasteless. That's another part that's in conjunction with. Okay, now I'm allowed to move on. All right, more exposure is coming. More puppets will be leaking information and talking. And for those who speak up, what he's telling me is that for those who speak up against the corrupt system, they'll be receiving immunity. So they'll be not touched or not put in jail or not charged, for example. And he says it's similar to like the Italian mob back in the day. If you were a snitch, you got less time in prison or you didn't get any prison time. So he's almost likening it to similar to that. He's also talking right now about the infiltration of other countries and cartel members in the US also being cleaned up and exposed. A great transformation of safer streets, cleaner cities, and much more respect of the establishment for doing so. More honor, like the days of the veterans who came back from war. When they came back, they were respected and honored, and they knew, yes, I fought for my country, this glorious country, this wonderful country, and the wonderful people here. So there's going to be a lot more, thank goodness our streets are cleaner and they're safer now. and you just have more respect and more honor. And Erik's adding to this and saying that this is a complete overhaul of the system and the streets for a safer, cleaner country to be living in and a part of. And he's really happy about it. This is what he's telling me. More community, connection with one another, speaking to each other, having conversations and enjoying time with one another. So I guess rather than being online or on your phone or disconnected, there's going to be a lot more community. And I'm wondering if this ties in with, at some point, AI taking over and robotics taking over enough jobs where everyone's laid off, and universal basic income is the only thing that essentially keeps everyone afloat, unless you have investments that are set aside for yourself. But what that will do is free up a lot more time for you to be more social and have more community and connection with one another. And he says, bingo, bingo. So that is correct. And in a lot of ways, Erik's saying that it'll almost like remind us of the old days when we had safer streets and let the children out to play, and we would chat with our neighbors. And he's showing me all of this visually. And we would know what's going on in our community, and we would support one another and help look after one another. And he's also showing people moving into the same home with one another and connecting and supporting each other, even if it's not your family members, even if it's just roommates. And if you haven't saved up and you don't have those savings to this date, don't worry. There are other people that you will be connecting with and moving in with, either them moving in with you or you moving in with them, and just being that support system and like its own nuclear family unit with each other. And this is what he feels is greatly needed and necessary, especially in this day of age, he says. He has some more to say on this. He's not done talking. So let's listen in and see what he says. It's really important that we champion for ourselves, that we speak up, that we don't stay silent, that we push our voices forward and don't back down. And just a reminder that there's a lot of us and very few of them, and that the narrative will slowly but surely start to change one country at a time. And there's going to be more exposure to come, which will lead to the downfall of these elitist puppets that are leading and running these countries. And rest assured that himself and spirit won't stop until this is done, this is complete, until the very end. We in the US probably have the longest chemical list than any other country out there. I agree. I absolutely agree. I don't want to be a Debbie Downer, but when I go to the US and I get food, I'm like, wow, that's a huge portion, number one. And then number two, it doesn't have a lot of flavor or taste for me. And then three is I just don't feel like eating it. So I usually eat half of it, and then I'll give the other half to the homeless when I walk down the street in my to-go box. And I'm not saying all cities are like that or all places, because it's not so. But there's something to be said with all of the tariffs that we put on you guys. So for example, in Canada, we have a long list of tariffs. I mean, it is out of this world how many tariffs we have on you guys. So the fact that Trump put that 35% on, to me, is not good. It's not good. But cheese, like 235%, and like it's just this, or dairy products. So there's no way that the US can come in. So we've been sheltered in that way, but we've also been sheltered from your banks, and we've also been sheltered from a lot of things. It definitely shows when I eat the foods here and then I go down south. I can significantly taste the difference and notice the difference of how I feel when I'm eating it. Are there chemicals developed to cause addiction to unhealthy foods and then cause inflammatory weight gain? He says, oh, yes. That's what he's saying. That's his answer. Oh, yeah. When we look at the foods, it's not for health and prosperity and length of time on this earth, not for the USA. If we looked at Japan, for example, the reason why they're living to an old age is directly correlated with their food. And also in Greece, for example, when you see people passing away of a heart attack in their 50s or getting diabetes in their 50s, or he says it's full circle. So if you, and he says that this is why they're removing the sugary pop from the food stamp program, because you drink all the pop and then full circle, now you're on diabetic medication and you're having all sorts of health issues. Diabetes isn't just diabetes. Diabetes can also lead to blindness, loss of limb. A friend of mine, her husband passed away from a heart attack at the bus stop after being blind for a number of years. Now it depends if you have type 1, type 2 diabetes. He had type 1, so he'd had it from a young age. But the point being made is that you give them money to get the pop or the sugar. Then it comes full circle where the system has to pitch in to help with medical medications and doctor's visits and medical procedures and all the sort. And then it costs on the back end too. So you can see why people are PO'd about that, removing the pop from being able to be purchased with your government food stamps. We need to start moving in a new direction where we clean up the soil and we clean up the food and we start helping people feel better. You know, the USA, from what he's saying, has been a real target. So it's time to turn things around. And he says that even though maybe what you're seeing at the grocery store or at the restaurants might be a certain way, if you go to some of them, they get better sources of product, better sources of food. So you'll go to certain restaurants where the food is even better, or you digest it better, you feel better afterwards. And it's important to support those places, those grocery stores or those restaurants. Also, if you move outside of certain cities, and he's really showing me Maine. So Maine is out in the forest and you can get like maybe a better quality type of food there versus in the middle of a large city in the center. Inflammation is a real issue and problem with the consumption of certain foods and beverages, and it can wreak havoc on the body, which can be very debilitating for a person for many years. And it's important that we push forward and support these individuals and let them know that we are here to help and that the system is changing and that it is going to get easier and better. And he says, and some of these individuals, they don't feel like they have any hope left, like they are feeling a bit lost with the level of inflammation in their body or health issues. And he's just talking about creating an alkaline body rather than an acidic body. We really need to create an alkaline body, and that's why I always say, get spring water, because tap water is not good. When you have spring water, you're creating more of an alkaline body. So you might start to feel your body cool down and you start feeling better, and the issues that you had aren't as prevalent. And he's saying that he says the goal is to make significant changes and improvements in this lifetime, but if the improvements don't improve your health fully in this lifetime, what he's hoping for is that the changes over many lifetimes will improve to the point where you'll say, oh yeah, I really want to go back to the USA because they've really changed things, and I'll feel better living there by eating and drinking and consuming what is being grown there. And again, he shows me 13 years from now, we're really going to begin cleaning up the planet and really turning things around. Like, it's really going to be a much more top priority, and really caring about the species that might be going extinct, or putting an allotment on the... So he's showing me like tuna, for example, because there's so much mercury and the tuna is got it through its body. If you eat too much tuna, cans of tuna, you can get mercury poisoning. So that happened to a friend of mine. Her friend said, look at this on my face. She had like this rash and bumps. And she goes, I'm going to go to the doctor and see what it's about. And then she went to the doctor and he said, that's mercury poisoning in your skin. And what are you eating? And she says, oh, I've been eating the local sushi with tuna every day at the grocery store. And he's like, you need to not eat that every day because it's built up in your system now. And so he's just saying that we need to do a massive overhaul if we care to continue living on this planet for years to come, for ourselves and for the other animals. And he's talking about it being like it's a full circle thing. So if we don't take care of the planet, then we can't be here either, right? We can't make it if we can't eat good nutritional foods. We will have shorter lifespans, more suffering. And a lot of what is transpiring comes back to the food. And he says that's why a lot of people, when they go visit France or they go visit Italy, they notice, oh, I don't have any problems when I eat this bread or I consume this pizza. I'm not having bloating. I'm not having any problems. I can eat as much of it as I want. And they understand and recognize that other countries like the US use certain chemical sprays that create a real problem for the human body when consuming these products. And it's gotten to the point where some people will even order big bags of flour from France or Italy, and they ship it to the US, and that's what they'll use to make their own bread and their own foods with, baking and all sorts. And he thinks that's very wise and a good idea. And he's doing a double winky like suggestion for some people that do have gluten intolerances or digestive problems or bloating, is we may want to maybe order in or purchase olive oil from Italy, or pasta from Italy, or canned goods from Italy, or large bags of flour from Italy or France. That's what he's saying here. I personally have noticed the same thing. So if I go to the grocery store and the pasta's from Italy, I'm getting that one, or the canned goods, or the olive oil. I go right for it. So how does one detox from what's in the foods in the US? Is purchasing food products from other countries like Italy or from France. So like if you want to order some people order like big canisters of olive oil and flour in, and they'll make their own pasta, they'll make their own bread with that, and then not drinking the tap water and aiming for pure sources of spring water to drink. Either you can order that out of your phone book from your local spring in your local area and they'll deliver it right to your door, or you can get it from the grocery store. But when you get it delivered from a spring from your local region, that is on a whole other level. You feel so much better, like so much better. And there are certain things that you can take to help get these these chemicals out of your system, and you can do some research on that as to what is best to do. He's talking about it depends on what type of chemical you want to remove from the body. So once you've got that narrowed down, then you look up what to do to have that removed from the body, and you do some research on that. Aiming for foods that are grown locally and that are sustainable, that aren't sprayed, that are like from the land, from your local region, that are pure of source, and then you can can them or preserve them to eat them through the winter. So you have the longevity of not going to the local grocery store that might get the product in that isn't viable for the human body. That's pretty strong worded. Okay. So it's not good for the human body. It's not viable. Storing food, storing the good food so it lasts longer, storing the good water so it lasts longer. He says if you have any skin irritations or rashes, you should have a look at the water that you're bathing in. And one of the ways that you'll notice that is if there's a heavy calcification all over the taps and in the bathtub, and that really builds up. You got to think that builds up on your skin as well. And so if you have any skin irritations or rashes in any parts of your body, it says if it's just like on your face, use spring water to wash your face only with. Try not to use the tap water to do that. If you have problems with your skin or inflammatory response with your skin, then you're going to go through the hassle of bathing in spring water. You have those baths to clean yourself, and you'll notice most likely the skin condition will heal up, and you know it's the tap water. And then he's also talking about a moment when I stayed on an island. We would bathe in this big, giant, carved out log of wood, and they carved it into a bathtub, and we would bathe in rainwater. Now that was back then, many years ago. But what I noticed was I would have eczema under my nose and on my eyelids, and all of a sudden that just disappeared. And that took about 3 months. So there was an outdoor shower from a big tank on the top, and then we'd heat it up, and then it would come through the shower. So you shower outside, or you would have a bath inside in the big log tub. Okay, so it might even come down to that if it's possible. If you're like, oh, I'm buying all this spring water, I like to bathe in maybe some rainwater. If you're in an area where maybe there aren't as much heavy chemtrails or pollutants. The light is building in the US first and in Canada, in particular, really bombarding the West Coast, but is ushered in pockets across the landscape. And each of you being here is a great blessing because it helps us help the planet and help each of you by bringing your light here. So he thanks you greatly for showing up here in this incarnation, in this lifetime on Earth. Without you coming here, they wouldn't be able to do what they're doing. Our light was the tipping point. It was the pivot point, and it was greatly needed here. So he thanks each of us, and he sends his love, and so Spirit will often do this like this, and that is a hand signal for me to say sending his love to each and every single one of us. And if we need help in the removal of any chemicals from our body or purification or making changes that are best suited for you moving forward, he is available to help each and every single one of you if you'd like. All right, everybody, have an awesome weekend. Also, looking forward to the classes coming up. We've got a great, awesome healing with Mother Mary coming up. And then we have on the 21st, we have meeting your Starseed family members. And then the last is sensing and feeling your guardian angels. How do you know where they are in the room with you? And how can you tap into their energy and communicate with them? Okay, and that's coming on the 28th. Oh, and I have just a few spots next week. If you like 30% off, there's only a couple spots next week available. The Labor Day weekend special. Okay, guys, bye.